Ladies and gentlemen, pray silence for your best men, Rav and Olly.
You can tell Rav's united.
Hi, I'm Rav.
And I'm Olly.
You might remember us from other Jenkins family events, such as JMO's 21st.
Or holidaying in Torrevieja.
And many, many nights of après-ski fun. We're here today as best men of James. Actually, I don't think many people here call him James. And so far today I've heard JMO, Jenkins and JJ. But most importantly, today he is the groom. And we're all here to celebrate the marriage of JMO and Wendy. So now the ink has dried on the marriage certificate, it's time to let everyone know what Wendy's in for. I first got to know James in school in about 1993. He was the boy sitting in the corner of a classroom, fiddling around with a stapler, trying to modify it into some sort of weapon of mass destruction. At times, James struggled with school. He was regularly picked on and humiliated, and this was just by the teachers. I recall one technology lesson where the height of buildings was being used as a measure of intelligence, and James was subsequently labelled a mud hut. This probably led to his distrust of authority figures, which we'll hear about later on. James found the academic subjects to be quite challenging, especially maths, where he'd find himself writing out a solution on the whiteboard at the front of the room, only to be constantly heckled by those sat down, usually mostly me. But James was very creative when preparing for exams. Not only did he go to Argos and purchase the most expensive calculator solely for storing all the required formulae for the exam, he strongly believed in the group approach to problem solving, not just for revision, but also during the exam. I seem to remember sitting in the maths exam, struggling to find a solution to the question. After a few moments, scratching my head, trying to work out the solution, I realised a method to do it. I started writing out my equation and my working out. So at this point, I heard a voice behind me going, "Oh, that's how you do it then." And to this day, he still says he was not copying. But while the academic subjects were a necessary evil at school, James excelled at practical subjects. And this was primarily because they're a great excuse to cause havoc. Of particular note, at the time we were in chemistry, we were studying photochemical reactions. For some unknown reason, James managed to wash his hands in silver nitrate. And for those that don't know, this is the chemical that's used in photographic film, so that turns black on exposure to daylight. So at the end of the school day, James's hands were completely black. He had to go home with a note to his parents explaining why his hands were darker than mine. But as well as chemistry, physics lessons were also an excuse for destruction. For someone who didn't even take the subject, James was present in many of the lessons. In fact, I'd speculate that his attendance for physics was the highest of any lesson, including those he was actually supposed to take. After countless power supplies, centrifuges and clamp stands had been wrecked during our lessons, we decided to put up warning signs in the laboratories to let people know of James's tendency to break things. In fact, I was the one who made those signs, and I still have a copy of it here, so I think we can show you exactly how effective it was. I think you'll agree it's a pretty good deterrent. But enough about James's destructive streak. They were here for their wedding, and I also have the pleasure of saying I was there when James and Wendy first met. This is at a friend's party, December 31st, 1996. While the rest of us were downstairs seeing him in the new year by watching the chimes of Big Ben on the TV, James was upstairs in the bathroom with Wendy, who'd drunk a little too much that night, and was seeing in the chimes in her own way. I think I took that bit off your website, so you can't blame me for that description. Once they started going out, I was very happy to see James date Wendy. And that's not only because they're a great couple, but also because Wendy lived a mile away from me. So whenever James used to go and see her, he'd give me a lift home. I remember his first car and how proud he was of it. It was like a murky brown Astra. And I remember Wendy's first car too. I even remember James taking Wendy's first car for a drive and managing to break it. So I guess the destructive streak was bound to continue, even with Wendy present. But throughout all this destruction and chaos and havoc, James has been a fantastic friend to me. He's that sort of personality where he becomes infamous by name. So I've got friends back in Boston who know all about his antics, even though you've never met him. And I think that shows exactly how much I value his friendship. He's always been there for me, ready to drive me somewhere at high speed, even though there really is no need. So, in order to sum him up, I asked a few people, how can we sum up his philosophy on life in a few words? And I think the most interesting comment came from Chris, and the gang who went skiing this year. It was, appreciate the highs, but understand the lows.
Yeah.
In all truth, a train like James is hard to find. On Stag Do, we had to look in 2 pubs, a taxi stand and a kebab shop before we found him. Seriously, James, I'm proud to have you as my friend. I couldn't wish to be best man to a better groom.